There's a lot of confusion right now. Do UK immigration changes actually affect someone's ability to buy property? If buying is allowed, where do immigration rules actually matter? Purchase, mortgage, or both? So, we are going to do a deep dive on this topic. And not only these two questions, there are many other questions which is related to the UK immigration and the changes which are currently announced. And we will see how does it impact your decision of buying a property or you should not buy a property in 2026. I have got an expert, Ripley from Firsttime Finance, who's going to do a deep dive with me. So if this topic is of any use to you, you know what to do, right? Make sure you keep watching the video till the end. So without any further delay, let me introduce you guys to Ripley. Hi Ripley, welcome to Your Knowledge Buddy. And if you don't mind, can you please introduce yourself once again to my audience, please?
Of course. Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name's Ripley Salguero. I'm the founder and CEO of Firsttime Finance. We are a mortgage broker that is here specifically to help people that have moved over to the UK.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think you're not a new face for my channel. My audience already knows you because we have done a couple of podcasts already and we did a live session on Instagram as well. So I'll continue that journey. And my today's topic is about how UK immigration changes affect buying a property in the UK. And I have, of course, written some questions, and those questions are from people that I interact with. They are in my friend circle or through my Instagram or through my YouTube channel. They are people who have already bought a property, and there were people who were planning to buy a property, but due to major changes which had been announced continuously, they are kind of not relaxed. So I'm going to throw some questions to you just to see your advice for them. So, first question is there's a lot of confusion right now. So, do UK immigration changes actually affect someone's ability to buy a property?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, especially with everything that's been going on. To be clear, no, from a lender's perspective, as it stands, not at all. Interestingly, it's actually been the opposite. So we've actually seen more lenders recently come to the market that previously said you must have ILR to get a mortgage, now starting to open up their criteria, which is really interesting. I understand from a person's perspective, they might be worried, frustrated, they might be a bit unsure, they might feel like it's a big risk to take. And I do understand that because I mean I feel like the rule changes and what's going on is completely unfair, really. I mean, without getting into it too politically, I do feel like it's extremely unfair and hard on people. So I understand if people are worried, but from a lender's perspective anyway, it seems to be opening up more, which is positive at least.
Yeah, definitely it's hard for people who are here for some time and they were hoping they will get their ILR soon, provided they had been following all the rules and being on skill visa for some time. So yes, I know it's hard.
Yeah.
Following my question one, so where do immigration rules actually matter? Purchase, mortgage, or both?
I think for this one, it's really the mortgage only. As I said, as it stands, we're seeing the complete opposite. So more lenders are becoming open. So I think it's interesting. I think when it comes to the purchase itself, nothing really changes. So there's no additional requirements from a solicitor or through the legal process that you have to go through at all. So it's really only the mortgage side and the deposit itself. So proving where your deposits come from if you've got money from abroad. But as I said a moment ago, none of that has changed in a negative light.
Okay. Based on the recent changes announced, do you think that now lenders will view the visa holders differently compared to the UK citizen or ILR holders based on the recent changes? Do you think that?
From what we've seen, and I can really only judge it on from what we've seen since those proposed changes started to be discussed, no. And I think it's really interesting, almost hard to understand because you'd think the two things would go hand in hand. Now, I'm talking from a perspective of will lenders look at this and go, we need to make it harder for visa holders to get a mortgage? Absolutely no, I do not think they would do that at all. I think the only part that will become a little bit more difficult or more people will face is that if you are waiting for ILR to get a mortgage, and of course, let's say the timeframes change to 10 years as the standard to get ILR, there's going to be a lot more people who might start thinking, okay, do I just get the mortgage whilst being on a visa? Because if I have to wait that length of time, it's quite a long period to wait. So I think from that perspective, we will see more instances where we have to be careful around the visa end dates, the length of time in the UK, and this is exactly what we do at Firsttime Finance. But um, if I'm comparing it to applicants that have ILR or British citizens, as you've asked, it, to be honest, it's just there are some more restrictions, right? We need to think about visa type, visa end date, length of time in the UK, and there are less lenders available, but there are still plenty of lenders that can accept.
Okay. So far you have not seen any changes from the lender side that they're becoming strict, or they are also calculating now instead of 5 years, the new base rule will be of 10 years for ILR. You have not seen as of now.
Not at all, no. They haven't changed, for
Okay.
example, to require more years on the end of someone's visa. That hasn't changed at all. So,
Okay, yeah. So the noise is that maybe the new proposal will be live or implemented by April 2026.
yeah.
And I think then we need to see if actually lenders or something change in the property market because of that or not. Yeah, maybe.
Potentially so, yeah. One thing I would say about that is based on how lenders act when with market changes,
Yeah.
is they do a lot of work to anticipate what is happening and change before it does, before the event actually happens, for example. So when we're seeing things happen with politics or when we're seeing Bank of England base rate changes, normally the lenders have already factored in before it actually happens because they're reading between the lines a bit and they're trying to manage their own risk. So I do really believe if they were concerned and if they were going to change these rules, they would have already changed them based on all of the discussions, based on everything that might happen. We of course will have to wait and see.
Okay, yeah. Ripley, today when you help people with the mortgage, do you see that people who are not close to ILR, do they get a better rate, or how does being close to ILR change
Yeah.
someone's mortgage options? What have you seen so far?
Yeah. Interestingly, so if you are close to getting ILR, let's say you're due ILR in the next 12 months versus you've just started on a skilled worker visa, so you're kind of over 4 years away from being able to get ILR as it stands, there aren't really any differences. So
Okay.
the real difference changes when you get ILR. So if once you get ILR, you can access a lot more lenders.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean you will definitely get a cheaper mortgage, though, because some of the lenders that accept visa holders are some of the cheaper lenders anyway. So you could wait for ILR to get a better mortgage deal and end up with the same mortgage deal that you could have got on a skilled worker visa. So it's not as easy to decide as that.
Okay. But they get a better mortgage rate if they have already got a ILR or a permanent residency, right? Because they have
Not
more
necessarily.
access, they have more access to lenders. Maybe they
It's
have
definitely
more
got more
options.
access. There's more, I would say, more flexibility and more
Yeah.
access, which could end up in a cheaper mortgage rate. But I have seen it with clients that have waited for ILR, which is fine if that's their decision. And actually, the lender we end up going to could be the same lender that would have accepted them on a skilled worker visa. So yeah,
Okay. I'm going to ask you something like maybe worst case scenario that you have seen or any
sure.
story that you want to share. So, and given the situation, current immigration changes which is happening or proposed,
Yeah.
and the market is so volatile as well, should immigrants wait for ILR before buying, or does that sometimes work against them?
Yeah, interesting question. It's very difficult for me to say what someone should or shouldn't do with this, but I will speak about the factors I think they should think through personally because I do think it is a very personal decision.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's important for them to think, okay, how long do they plan to stay in the UK? If they're aiming for ILR, are they planning to stay here very, very long term? I think
Mhm.
it's important for them to think about their current living situation, paying rent. Are you having to move potentially every couple of years because the landlords are selling their property or
Yeah.
want to increase the rent, for example?
Yeah.
I think people should also think about property prices and how those increase over time. So if you wait 5 years, or potentially if things change, you wait 10 years to buy a property. If we look at past property prices and how that's changed over that kind of period of time, it's quite a huge increase. So if that was to happen again over the next 5 to 10 years, you could end up paying a lot more for a property. So I guess there's a bit of looking at, okay, how much could you lose if you don't go and buy a property? If you do wait, are you losing out on increased property prices? Are you losing out on paying for rent and so on? Of course, on the other hand, I do understand people's perspective of I might not want to get a mortgage whilst on a visa because of the risk involved, because I don't have the permanent rights to reside here.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, moving to the next topic, again, not related to immigration, but again, do immigration changes also impact, like, say, stamp duty, council tax, or other property taxes?
Yeah, so when it comes to tax, again, I have to be quite careful how I answer this one because I'm not a tax advisor. So I'll make that clear. I'm not a tax advisor, so I can't give tax advice. But as
Yeah.
guidance as to what I've seen in the market, there are kind of no changes depending on immigration rules for things like stamp duty. It's more based on residency tax rules. So are you a UK tax resident or not? Of course, if you're in the UK living here on a visa, you're going to be a UK tax resident. But yeah, no changes.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ripley. Again, this question, again, it's personal. I know it's not for me or you to answer, but this question I'm getting on my Instagram feed, and people are kind of asking, like opinion, because we had been here for some time. And I think it'll be nice to get your piece of advice again here. So
Yeah.
now, how should visa holders decide the right time to buy? So should they look at their visa length or income, market condition, immigration changes, or the ILR duration? So given everything going on, if
Yeah.
today they have to ask me, I don't know what should advise them, to be honest, because the market is
Yeah.
so volatile. I don't know what will be announced tomorrow. And I don't know if I was in their situation, what I would have done. So again, I know it's a personal choice or a personal question. But if you look from your perspective, like a mortgage advisor, what do you have to say?
What I would say is if you are planning on living in the UK long term, I think it is a good option to buy a property. Due to things mentioned, property prices potentially increasing, moving away from paying rent. I think all of those things make it very beneficial to buy a property. Of course, there is the unknown of what will change with immigration, what might change in your life, but ultimately, I think it becomes very difficult to base any of life's decisions on what might happen, and these are things that unfortunately are completely out of our control, right? So, although of course you do have to weigh up those things and manage your own risk, I do think if you're planning on staying here long term, it can be good to buy a property to get away from renting. Um, Even if let's think about the worst case scenario where let's say okay, you decided to leave the UK, the immigration changes were too much, and you decided, you know what, I'm not going to continue here. You could still keep the property when you leave the UK. It is still an asset. It
Yeah.
is still something that you can benefit from. So it doesn't have to be something that, okay, if the changes happen and you leave, suddenly you lose all of the money that you had spent on a property.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Thanks. Um, any common mistakes you have seen which people are repeatedly making on skilled worker or student work visa holders? What have you observed so far based on the clients that you have? And what,
Yeah.
yeah, what do you say to my audience?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think there's a couple of things that sometimes we get clients that want to, I think, take advantage in a positive way, of course, of the first time buyer stamp duty relief, and they like to think that if one person buys a property and another person buys a property separately, let's say a couple, that they can take advantage of that both separately. Um, Again, without going too much into tax, if you do have a look online at stamp duty rules to do with tax, typically married couples are considered as one one entity or one person for those rules. Again, I'm not giving tax advice here. Um, so I think that's a mistake is people think, okay, let's try do this separately to save on some tax. Whereas I think people should be viewing it much more from the view of we're buying a home, buying it together, getting the right place, building long term. I think it's a much more long term decision. I think thinking about those things is more of a short term choice. So I think that's one thing. Another point I would mention is waiting until you don't have very long left on your current visa. So if you're on a skilled worker visa, they're not always issuing those for 5 years. Sometimes it's split into a 3 year and a 2 year term, for example. But if you wait until you've only got, let's say, 10 or 11 months left on the visa, the options available for the mortgage there'll be less. There'll be less lenders willing to lend. So it also gives you more certainty as well. If you get a 3 year or 2 year visa, you could go ahead then because you've got more time ahead on that visa without having to renew it at all.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ripley. I think we discussed a lot topic today regarding immigration and how people are feeling at the moment and their decisions based on the changes which were announced. So I believe this video will help them at least make a decision, or at least they will be a little relaxed. At least they know there won't be too much of an impact on the buying property, like you explained
Yeah.
in the various questions that I asked you. Any final recommendation or tips before we wrap today's video?
Um, I think I think just giving yourself some time to have a think about it. It's a big choice. It really is, and I trust me, I really understand through working with some of our amazing clients how unfair and frustrating some of these changes or proposed changes to immigration rules are. And I know you, but of course, Sarika will think the same as myself. So I think just giving yourself some time to think about it and think through all of the options with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, consider everything. Consider, okay, if I stayed renting, how much would I spend on rent? What's the risk of me having to move around a lot? How does that affect my kids, right? For example. So I think there's all these things to consider. And I think when you look at it and maybe just weigh up the pros and the cons, I think you'd come to a decision of what's best for you in that moment. I'm a firm believer that buying a property is a good thing to do, but of course it's important to weigh up those pros and cons for
Yeah.
everyone personally.
Okay, thanks, Ripley. How can my audience reach out to you?
Yeah, perfect. So I believe you'll leave my details. Hopefully, I think it'll be in the description box below. If you search on Google First Time Finance, we will come up. You'll be able to see our website, Trustpilot reviews, lots of amazing stories of clients that worked with us. So you can reach out. There is a WhatsApp us button on our website. So you can literally click and you will be WhatsApping the team. So it's very, very easy.
Great. Thank you very much, Ripley. Thank you for coming and sharing knowledge. I hope this was useful from audience. Speak to you soon. Thank you.